This morning it comes into action, the Ofsted's attempt to rework itself. The attempt to rebrand is little more than a lazy rewrite. It's a crude exercise in rhetorical window dressing that does nothing to address the systematic failures, the system failures of the organisation itself. The new report cards, a colour-coded mess from green to red, masquerading as transparency. It changes nothing fundamental about the way schools are inspected, judged, and in many cases punished. And Ofsted once again demonstrates that it's not there to help, it's there to smugly apportion blame to anyone else other than itself. At its core, Ofsted remains an arrogant, self-serving bureaucracy that is more concerned with its own image than with the well-being of educators or pupils, and it's responded to the catastrophic failure over Ruth Perry, not with meaningful reform, but with a rebranding exercise reminiscent of a marketing team slapping a new logo on a discredited product and hoping that it's still going to pitch. The much vaunted shift away from single-word judgments is in reality a glorified thesaurus exercise. Instead of inadequate, we now have causing concern. Instead of good, we get strong. These euphemisms change nothing about the stress and the fear that inspections place on schools and their leadership. And the superficiality of this shift is staggering. As Julia Waters, sister of the late Ruth Perry, aptly puts it, Ofsted has fed its own judgments through an online thesaurus. The justification for these changes is that a more granular and detailed approach will provide better insight into a school's performance. Yet the reality is that this new system simply increases the number of hurdles schools must clear. Ofsted will now apply its grading across at least 9 different categories, meaning that instead of a single sword hanging over a school's head, there will now be 9 smaller ones, each capable of causing reputational damage. This is not a fairer system, it's a convoluted one. It entrenches the same old punitive approach while pretending to offer nuance. The report cards are unlikely to provide parents with genuinely useful information, but they will certainly create a new set of league tables, allowing headlines to be crafted around which schools are causing concern and which are exemplary. It's a horrible, horrible, destructive influence, Ofsted, frankly. The death of Ruth Perry in 2023 should have been a moment of reckoning for Ofsted, a signal that its high-stakes, high-pressure inspections were fundamentally flawed. Now, I know some of the Ofsted inspectors. They were second-rate even when I knew them. They're still there as far as I know. And the only reason that they get jobs is because they're Ofsted inspectors, as far as I can see. And I find it extraordinary. I must say, I must put my cards on the table that a number of jobs I've been given, I think, are simply because schools were worried that an Ofsted inspection was upcoming and they thought appointing somebody who'd got a sort of title professor in their name was going to elevate their school reputation. In most cases, I survived until just after the Ofsted inspection, and then an excuse was made to suggest that maybe I wanted to move on. Yeah, absolutely I did. I hate being the wallpaper. And a truly reformed system, a system that is not that is not completely kowtowing to a bureaucracy that is out of control. A truly reformed system would not simply repaint the existing scaffolding, but would fundamentally reconsider how we evaluate, how we support schools, how teachers, head teachers' unions have consistently called for a shift towards an advisory and a developmental inspection framework rather than a punitive one, and this isn't it. Ofsted should exist to ensure that all schools are excellent. It doesn't. It exists to point the finger of blame at one school rather than another, to say this school is better than that school. But most parents don't have the resources or the opportunity or the time to move house in order to fall into a different catchment area where the school is considered better at that particular point. And I don't understand why anybody thinks they are offering a parent choice when there's a choice to go to a school which is inadequate. That isn't choice. That is punishment. This is one range of punishment after another. And Ofsted seems steadfastly committed to the idea that pressure and fear are the best motivators for improvement. Certainly schools don't believe that, and certainly schools don't benefit from that. Certainly children don't believe or benefit from that. Certainly not parents, who will be left wading through a bureaucratic swamp of colour-coded assessments that tell them little more than the old system did, while adding layers of jargon to muddy the waters. The true beneficiary of this rebrand is Ofsted itself. It can now claim to have listened to criticism, to have responded with reform, but in reality it's done the bare minimum required to placate its critics. This is an organisation unwilling to admit that its fundamental approach is broken, and instead of humility it offers spin, instead of change it offers a reshuffle of words. The rebrand is deceptive. The same flawed system remains. It's just repackaged in the language of progress. What Ofsted has produced is not a bold vision for accountability in education, but a corporate sleight of hand designed to shift attention away from its failure. Teachers, unions, and parents must demand real change, because the future of school inspection shouldn't be dictated by an organisation more interested in its own reputation than in the well-being of the schools and the children that it's meant to support. Ofsted doesn't need a rebrand. It needs a reckoning. Actually, what it needs is to be dumped.